Hello and welcome to my podcast where I discuss the origins of all sorts of things. I'm your host, Danny Payne, and this is On the Origin of Everything. Today I'm talking about blue jeans. What is a jean and why are they blue? When we think of jeans, we think workwear, like overalls and Wranglers, but also fashion, like low-rise skinny jeans or high-rise mom jeans. And let's not forget Levi's, the OG jeans. Or were they? In today's episode, I'll trace the origins of that familiar blue fabric back to its surprising 600-year-old roots. We'll follow the journey of jeans through history, their important uses, and their socio-cultural impact, from their modest beginnings in a small Italian town to a global icon of work and style. We're about to learn that blue jeans are way more than just a pair of pants. Let's jump in. To find the origin of blue jeans, we have to travel back in time to the 1400s to a town in the Piedmont region of northern Italy, a little town called Chieti. Chieti was a textile center, a hub for weaving, embroidering, and dyeing fabrics, supplying regional markets and itinerant traders. Chieti manufactured a variety of woven cloths, one of which was fustian, a heavy, coarse, woven cotton or cotton linen blend, often used for sails and tarps. This fabric was so durable that it began to be used to make clothes for the sailors themselves, including their trousers. Working with rope and being around salt water all the time would shred a sailor's clothes, so this new fustian fabric that came out of Chieti was far superior to anything they had been wearing. Chieti workshops also dyed these fustian fabrics with woad, a dye named after the woad plant, and I bet you can guess what color this dye was. That's right, blue. So fustian cloth, the very first jean, was already blue, and then it was used for workwear basically right away, in the 1400s. We've been working in blue jeans a really long time. Chieti distributed their blue fustian fabrics through different trade circuits, and Genoa was their major port, exporting this very useful fabric across Europe. In the 1500s, the durable blue cloth came to be known not by the name of the place where it was manufactured, Chieti, but by the port city from which it was exported, Genoa. The French called it bleu de Gênes, meaning blue of Genoa, referring to the color of the fabric that came from Genoa. The Gênes in bleu de Gênes is spelled G-E-N-E-S. So when bleu de Gênes entered the English-speaking world, Gênes turned into jean, and bleu de Gênes became blue jeans. So that's where the word jean comes from, Gênes, the French name for Genoa, the port that shipped the tough blue cloth to markets across Europe. A lot of sources will say that this fustian fabric from Chieti was not the origin of the blue jean, but only the predecessor. They cite the origin of denim as the true first blue jean, but we're here to set the record straight. In the 1600s, there was a competing textile center in the French city of Nîmes that was producing a different type of woven fabric, a high-quality woven twill made of wool and silk, not cotton. It was its own thing, unrelated to the original blue jean of Chieti. It has been said that because this wool and silk twill weave was called serge de Nîmes, it got shortened to denim and then denim, crediting Nîmes as the birthplace of the true modern denim jean. However, modern denim is a stronger variant of the jean due to its application of that twill weave, but the name denim likely originated in the 1700s as a way to market this stronger jean fabric with some prestige, giving it a French flair and attributing it to the textile town of Nîmes, de Nîmes. That is the more likely origin of the word denim. It may sound like I'm splitting hairs here, but serge de Nîmes from the 1600s was not a jean at all, so it really can't take credit for being the first denim, or the first blue jean. The origin claim remains with Chieti and its major exporter, Genoa. Here at On the Origin of Everything, we care a lot about the true origins of things. It's kind of the whole point of us. That's why we had to iron that out. All right, I'll touch on this again later, but let's move on for now. The 1700s brought some very important innovations in the textile industry, beginning with John Kay's invention of the flying shuttle in 1733. Now, I don't even know how to sew a button onto a shirt, so I'm in no position to explain the exact mechanisms of this contraption. And even if I could, it would be super confusing to explain over a podcast. Luckily, there are YouTube videos and lots of illustrations online if you really want to see how this thing worked. But basically, it mechanized the shuttle's movement, hence the name Flying Shuttle, and it dramatically increased weaving speed. This invention allowed one person to do what used to take two people. Doubling the speed of production is a pretty significant improvement, even if it didn't fully mechanize the entire process. That surge in weaving output created an immediate problem. Spinning couldn't keep up. The process of making fabric starts with turning fibers, like cotton, into a yarn through spinning, and the loom is what weaves the yarn. When John Kay's flying shuttle increased the speed of weaving, it created the need to also increase the speed of spinning yarn to keep up. Enter James Hargreaves' Spinning Jenny, patented in 1770. The Spinning Jenny was a multi-spindle machine that allowed one worker to spin multiple threads at once. Another huge advancement. And then weaving crossed another threshold of efficiency when Edmund Cartwright patented an early power loom in 1785. His invention mechanized the weaving process using gears, levers, and pulleys to replicate manual motions. All the worker needed to do was turn a crank. Cartwright's power loom wasn't fully automated. It was still human-powered, and this early rudimentary design wasn't a big time saver, but it was a foundational move toward factory-scale cloth production. Power looms would evolve from human-powered hand cranking to water-powered water wheels, and eventually steam-powered. So, Cartwright's power loom wasn't yet an efficient factory machine, but it proved the concept that weaving could be automated, and over the next few decades, textile production would enter the factory age. As the textile industry was booming, it needed a steady and plentiful supply of raw materials. Cotton became the fuel of industrial cloth. A major driver of plantation expansion in the U.S. was the explosive demand for cotton. Eli Whitney's cotton gin in 1793 dramatically sped up seed removal from cotton, making cultivation far more profitable and scalable. The cotton gin is credited with institutionalizing slavery in the American South, increasing enslaved populations from 700,000 in 1790 to over 3 million by 1850. By the mid-1800s, southern states produced 75% of the world's cotton, shipping a large portion of it to England for cloth production. At the same time, the world's blue dye was shifting from woad to indigo. For centuries, England, France, and Germany used woad for their blue dye and even outlawed the importation and the cultivation of the superior dye indigo to protect their domestic woad producers. But as indigo spread through global trade and ultimately outcompeted woad, European governments were forced to lift their ban on indigo, and that deep, durable blue became the defining color of jeans and other blue-dyed fabrics in the decades of cotton textiles that followed. Let's take a quick break right here, and when I come back, I'll explain how blue jeans entered American culture to satisfy a specific need, and later became a symbol of rebellion, before landing a role in fashion. Stay with me. This episode is brought to you by Nothing. To help keep ads off this show, please consider making a monthly contribution of just $5 a month by clicking the Patreon link in the show notes, or by going to patreon.com/ontheoriginofeverything. Another way you can support the show is by giving it a 5-star rating and review, by following it, or by sharing it. Let's build a community of people that are curious and always learning. Now, back to the origin of blue jeans. From the 1700s to the first half of the 1800s, a global commodity chain formed around cotton, linking enslaved labor on plantations, maritime merchants, textile factories, and retailers into a single commercial ecosystem. By the early 1800s, Britain was the world's leading cotton cloth producer and exporter, but textile factories started popping up in New England too. The famous Slater's Mill was the first successful water-powered cotton spinning mill built by Samuel Slater in Pawtucket, Rhode Island around 1790. Slater's Mill launched the factory system in the U.S., bringing the Industrial Revolution to America. Integrated mill towns followed, like the notable mill town of Lowell, Massachusetts. I've actually been there. It's one of the coolest places I've ever been to, and I wasn't even fully aware of its historical significance at the time. I was just impressed by the mill's massiveness. I'll post some photos on our website if you want to see how awesome this textile mill was. Just go to ontheoriginpod.com. So, back to blue jeans. Remember that wool and silk twill fabric made in Nîmes that everyone wants to call the first denim, even though it wasn't even made of cotton? Well, at some point, this type of fabric did transition from being a silk-wool blend to 100% cotton, likely related to the ubiquity of cotton coming from southern states. And early British manufacturers of this new cotton twill called it denim because French verbiage carried a certain cachet. I'm reiterating this because this is when denim really became denim, sometime in the 1700s, and denim shows up in the United States as both an imported fabric and a home-woven product by the late 1700s. Today, jeans and denim are interchangeable terms, but they were different things back then. Denim was the more durable of the two, with a stronger weave made of tougher yarn. By the mid-1800s, denim was a recognized durable fabric for miners and other workers. It was the fabric of the working class and cotton plantation slaves. It's a cruel irony that enslaved people were issued clothing made out of the very cotton they were forced to pick. They cultivated and harvested the cotton, which was then shipped to a textile mill to be turned into cloth, and then the cloth was sold in bulk yardage to wholesalers and dry goods stores. But how did the cloth turn into garments for work? A few ways. Local tailors and seamstresses were commissioned by plantation owners to make work clothes for their slaves, or some plantation owners bought the cloth and had their own slaves make clothes out of them on site. Or there were these things called slop shops that produced inexpensive, ready-made garments called slops that plantation owners could buy for their slaves to wear. So that was the cycle, from picking cotton to wearing cotton to continue picking more cotton. I'm going to need to take a shower after this. Alright, back to denim. I got a little sidetracked with the tragic irony of it all. Sorry. Okay, so denim was the go-to fabric for hard labor in America, and this sets the stage for someone you might have heard of before. A man named Jacob Davis. You thought I was going to say Levi Strauss, didn't you? Well, the story of Levi's jeans actually starts with Jacob W. Davis, a tailor in Reno, Nevada. Davis had been making work pants for miners and other laborers and noticed a recurring problem. The seams and pocket corners of his pants would tear after some use. His customers would bring their pants back to him so he could repair them, and one day he thought of trying a technique already used in other trades of fastening small copper rivets to reinforce those stress points. The rivet took the strain off of the thread and did a much better job of holding the fabric together under repeated use. His idea was less of a brilliant invention and more of a practical solution. But as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. Or as Plato put it first, our need will be the real creator. Davis's rivets were a simple but effective solution to a common problem, and he recognized that he had something, or that his idea could become something. But he lacked the funds to secure a patent himself, so he documented his design and sought out a business partner, reaching out to his supplier of cloth, one named, you guessed it, Levi Strauss. Strauss owned a dry goods store in San Francisco, which was actually a wholesale branch of his brother's New York dry goods firm. serving as a local distributor of durable cloths. When Strauss was presented with the riveted pants idea, he agreed to go into business with Davis, and the two men were granted a patent in 1873. The patent description was kind of funny to me. A metal rivet or eyelet placed at the edge of a pocket to prevent the seam from ripping. Pretty straightforward. This patent was the start of a new era for denim. It may seem like I'm overstating, but these riveted pants were instrumental in taking denim from a raw fabric to be tailored ad hoc to a product that could be marketed and mass-produced. And that's exactly what Davis and Strauss did. Davis ran the workshop operations, and Strauss provided capital, distribution, and the commercial reach of an established merchant. Davis picked a heck of a business partner, didn't he? And they weren't done changing the world of pants quite yet. As their pants became more and more established as a patent-protected workwear product, Levi Strauss & Company introduced a leather patch on the rear waistband that functioned as both a brand label and a marketing device. This patch contained more than just the name of the company. It also included a trademarked illustration of two horses pulling in opposite directions, trying to tear a pair of pants apart. It was an effective way of conveying the incredible durability and strength of their pants to an audience that may or may not be able to read. After all, many Western laborers were illiterate English speakers or foreign non-English speakers. In short, the rivets made the pants distinct, and the branding made them recognizable. In 1936, they added that iconic little red Levi's tag on the back pocket for an even more unmistakable distinction from the competition. Brilliant stuff from Levi's. What about Levi's 501s? Where did those come from? Well, 501 began as a lot number, or a practical product code, introduced around 1890, and it later became part of the identity people used to recognize and talk about the classic Levi's jean, especially as Levi's faced new competition once their rivets patent expired and riveted pants were no longer exclusive. Levi's 501s became a signal to consumers that this was the original blue jean in a world of copycats. Levi's may have defined the birth of the modern blue jean, but competitors shaped what jeans became in the 20th century. A major player was the H.D. Lee Mercantile Company, founded in 1889. You've probably heard of Lee Jeans. I would have placed Lee Jeans squarely in the 90s. But they're an old company. Lee built its reputation on durable work clothing, like Levi's did, but it introduced influential designs like the Union-All coverall in 1913. In the 20s, Lee helped modernize jeans with Western-centric styles and was largely responsible for jeans becoming strongly associated with cowboys. Also, jeans had previously had a button fly, and Lee is credited for introducing the zipper fly, a major milestone in the history of jeans. By the early 20th century, denim had a clear place. They belonged in mines, farms, railroads, and the range. But that boundary started to blur when Hollywood westerns and dude ranch tourism encouraged ordinary Americans to dress like dudes, and blue jeans became part of the costume of leisure. A dude ranch is a ranch that takes paying visitors, or dudes, who come to participate in ranch life. Instead of staying at a hotel, guests rode horses, went fishing, and took part in other ranch activities while wearing jeans, boots, and cowboy hats. These were often family-operated cattle ranches that diversified by hosting travelers. The Encyclopedia of the Great Plains estimates that there were upwards of 350 dude ranches in the United States during the 30s. Levi's even designed products to meet that demand, including women's jeans in 1934. Women were drawn to dude ranches because they could wear practical clothing, including jeans, under the umbrella of Western leisure, or ranch chic. Dude ranch culture helped create a consumer market for women wearing jeans as leisure, not just labor. I remember watching a show called Hey Dude as a kid. It took place on a dude ranch, and I had no idea what I was watching. I didn't know what a dude ranch was. I just liked the show. I tried rewatching some of those episodes recently, and it's pretty stupid. It doesn't hold up. But I can't believe that dude ranches were such a big thing that even in the 90s, Nickelodeon made a whole show that was set on a dude ranch. Hey, dude. I hope at least some of you know what show I'm talking about. Anyway, as denim began to be worn outside its proper setting, leaving the boundaries of hard labor toward leisure attire, some stigma developed, especially for women whose wearing pants was seen as inappropriate. Then, World War II continued to push blue jeans toward casual usage. Wartime restrictions on features led to simpler, more utilitarian designs worn by men and women, introducing more people to wearing jeans and thus normalizing them. The war didn't make jeans fashionable, but it did make jeans more ordinary and widespread. When the war ended, rations lifted, and jeans quickly moved from wartime practicality toward civilian, everyday clothing. Returning veterans helped carry this look into public life, and the cultural meaning of denim shifted further toward a fashion statement. GIs came home and continued to wear their blue jeans, coupled with cool leather jackets. They also gravitated toward riding motorcycles, perhaps as a substitute for the adrenaline they left behind. Whatever the reason, motorcycling's popularity rose dramatically in that post-war period, and the motorcycle scene became highly visible to the wider public over the 4th of July weekend in 1947, when thousands of riders descended on Hollister, California in their leather jackets and blue jeans. The media coverage gave this event national attention, generating negative public opinion and helping solidify the outlaw biker image. Hollywood then amplified that image through the 1953 film The Wild One, in which Marlon Brando's character wears blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and a leather jacket as the leader of the Black Rebels Motorcycle Club, a gang that stirs up trouble in a small California town. The plot of this movie is loosely based on the Hollister event in 1947, adding to the developing bad reputation of blue jeans as a symbol of unruly, rebellious youth. The shift of jeans from workwear to everyday public life sparked a surprisingly organized backlash, especially in schools, which treated blue jeans as a symbol of immorality, loosened discipline, and even juvenile delinquency. Around the same time this was happening, Levi Strauss & Company had been trying to convince the public that jeans were right for school. They even launched a campaign with the slogan, "Levi's for the seats of learning." They had an uphill battle though, as many schools had banned blue jeans outright. Jeans were banned from schools. How crazy is that? But a lot of youth in America would not be dissuaded. They found workarounds to the prohibition on jeans, like bleaching them to pass dress code on technicality. Levi's had their own counter-move to the resistance. They tried to de-escalate the conflict by producing white Levi's and other colors in the early 60s. Despite the fervent opposition, the cultural tide ultimately turned, and denim eventually won out. The sociocultural revolution of the 1960s fully embraced denim jeans as a sort of identity marker, the default uniform of a new generation, if you will. And once the stigma of blue jeans faded, the sky was the limit for blue jeans. They moved from being counterculture to being a mass-market staple, from rebellion to mainstream. What followed was a series of reinventions. Designer jeans, craft revival, and subcultural reappropriation added new threads to the rich history of that simple, indigo-dyed cotton cloth. From the humble textile workshops of Chieti, Italy, worn by sailors, miners, and field hands, let's not forget the reluctant uniform of enslaved men and women, and the uniform of general labor over centuries. A fabric for times of war, And for times of peace, blue jeans carry with them the history of industrial innovation, colonial trade, and social change. And that's the origin of blue jeans. What an amazing journey. I told you jeans were more than just a pair of pants. I had a lot of fun with this one. But that's it for today. I'm gonna go give Hey Dude another try. Maybe it gets better after a few episodes, or seasons. Probably not. But thanks for joining me, and I'll see you back here in a couple of weeks for another Random Origin. Until next time, so long. Research, music, and production was all done by Jezere Wilson. This podcast is listener-supported, owned and operated by Jez and myself under the On the Origin of Everything, LLC in the United States. All rights reserved. We can be reached via email at info@ontheoriginpod.com.